Good afternoon. Welcome to this live conversation of the European Training Foundation, the Learning Connects conversation. This live interview is going to be broadcast on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and on LinkedIn. And this month, the European Training Foundation focus on the skills needed for the green transition. So this conversation is going to be about the importance of developing the skills and equipping human resources with the knowledge needed for the green transition to happen. Let me introduce you our guest for today's conversation, Serna Suder from the University of Montenegro. Welcome, Serna, and thanks for joining us.
Welcome, it's nice to be here with all of you.
Thanks. Abdel Bidad from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. Welcome. Oh, we can't hear you, Abdel. Maybe you have to unmute your mic. Meanwhile, Abdel is solving the issue with the microphone. I would like to introduce, last but not least, our third colleague, Roman Rata from the European Training Foundation. Welcome, Roman.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
Just before starting, Abdel, can you hear us? Can you say
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone.
Before we get started, I would like to invite all our followers to let us know where you're watching us from, so we understand the geography of this live conversation. And please take part in it. Send us your questions, your comments in the chat. So first, why do we speak today about the green transition and why it matters at all? Roman.
That's a very, very broad question. Thank you very much for asking that. So let's start with climate change, which is happening all around us. We all see it. There are many different manifestations of it. We could dedicate an entire session discussing that, but we'll focus on the main one, which is global warming. And the temperature is rising. We all know that. We see that we have higher temperatures in many areas of the world. At right this moment, there's an incredible heat wave going through India and Pakistan. And I see we have a follower from Pakistan. I hope he has air conditioning. And so this shows how the situation is changing very fast. I'm referring to this particular example right now, but there are hundreds of others throughout the world, in Europe, beyond Europe. The last one we had in Europe, for example, were the floods in Germany. That was clearly a consequence of climate change. So the reason why this is all happening is very simple. It's the problem with a greenhouse gas that we produce and emit into the atmosphere that go above a certain concentration, which changes the climate of the Earth. This is very complicated and needs to be addressed urgently. And therefore, all the countries of the world, almost all, met in Paris in 2015, where they signed up to the now referred to as the Paris Agreement, where all the countries committed to reducing significantly their greenhouse gas emissions in order to reach net zero by 2050. And net zero means that we would go in 2050, we would produce as much as we did in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So this is all very well. And at the level of the European Union, there is an additional layer of commitment, which were enacted through the European Green Deal. And the European Green Deal is basically a set of policies, a package of policies in order to decarbon most of the economic sectors. And so this will have naturally huge implications on how we consume, live, work. The world of work is going to change because the regulations will change the way we can do things. All economic activities will need to not emit greenhouse gas effects, but also nurture the ecosystem in which they operate, and also make sure that all the citizens can profit from this transition. So in a sense, the green transition is how we reach a green economy from the state that we are today, the process that needs to take place for us to shift towards a green, circular, green economy. And naturally, that has huge implications for employment and therefore skilling, hence the pertinence of today's conversation.
Thanks a lot, Roman. Indeed, we will come back definitely to the European Green Deal. And we understand that the problem is really coming through all different layers of our lives and our societies. But this conversation, we want to focus it namely on the skills and on preparing people to tackle the challenges imposed by the climate change. Before going to my next question, I just would like to welcome some of our followers and also to make you, dear guests, understand the geography of this live. So we have Rashko from Montenegro, Nikab from Pakistan, Izzat Bek from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, Sarah from Berlin, Nebosha, hello, Abdi, hello, from Ankara, from Turkey. We have a follower from Sweden following us, Nicoletta Galimberti from Italy. Hi, Nicoletta, nice to see you here today. Maria Jesus from Spain, Merab from Tbilisi. Hi, Merab, nice to see you here. Elisabetta Carnello from Turin, from Italy. Ahad Kazimov from Baku. Hello, Ahad, welcome. Mahmoud from Egypt, and Radmil from North Macedonia. So, next question is, as Roman said, the climate change will touch our lives in all different aspects. And this conversation is going to be focusing on the green skills, so on those skills needed for the green transition. Serna or Abdel, can we define the green skills? So what are those green skills and what they actually mean? Abdel, maybe we start with you. Abdel, we can't hear you. Again, it's you're muted. No, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
No,
like I said, Roman did a great job introducing the green transition. But as you said, we need to focus on these skills needed for the green transition. And this is why the European Commission, we don't think that there is such a thing as green skills per se, but there is an ensemble of skills that are needed for the green transition. These skills, or so-called green skills, could be digital skills, could be problem thinking skills. It's all those skills that will contribute to achieving the objectives of the green transition.
Roman, is there a list of such skills and where people can find those?
Yes, there is. In fact, the European Commission has been working on that subject very recently, and they've very recently published what they call the green competence, which is basically a paper that helps researchers and policy makers and decision makers throughout the region to analyze, understand, approach the concept of skilling the green transition. Because as Abdel very rightly explained, it's not simply green skills, it's more complex than that. Some of the things that we need to learn will not be directly green, but they are needed for the green transition.
Thanks a lot, Roman. Before going to the next question, just want to say hi for newcomers in this stream. We have Gudi from Nigeria, Syria from Italy, Uroba from Pakistan, Olfa from Tunisia. Welcome everyone. Gabrielle from Ireland, Susanna from Italy, Christina from Athens, Greece, and Tella from Tirana. So you see the geography is pretty wide, and we are all happy to have all of you together today with us. So usually in European Training Foundation, we say that we need to make your education relevant to the labor market, which would mean that the skills that education provide to people would then be used by these people to find a job. Can we see already the demand from the employer side in terms of the green skills? Serna, maybe this one goes to you.
Yeah. I would like to also complement what Roman previously said regarding to certain frameworks on global and EU level, like EU Green Deal, which and Paris Agreement, which will definitely change and are already changing the industry, the economies, the education, and needed as Abdel said, skills in order to reach these targets that have been imposed by the framework. So there are global trends and EU trends. Certain sectors will thrive, like sustainable transport, energy efficiency, green energy, sustainable fashion and sustainable agriculture, while other sectors will be challenged, and certain jobs will be had to be shifted to another sectors like mining, like fossil, all the industries and activities that are based on fossil fuels. So there will be a shift in the job market of the new emerging jobs and roles, and the ones that will cease or be decreased.
But do you feel that employers already care about green skills when they do, for instance, the recruitment?
Yeah, it's starting to change on the global and the EU level. Now, majority of employers are asking either for some, as Roman said, maybe not specific skills, but skills that will contribute to the specific expertise and specific knowledge. So, problem solving, critical thinking, or the things that need to merge specific knowledge, thematic knowledge into one area, because sustainable development or these issues are not just straightforward, because different sectors, different topics need to be merged in order to solve certain things and to reach targets.
In fact, we have a question, our first question in the chat from Nicoletta Galimberti, asking where can be found the document that Roman was mentioning. I think it's the green green competence framework developed by the European Commission. And for all our followers, you can find the link published by our technical producer in the chat, Matteo. So you will find the link there to the document, and you can consult it after this live conversation. Now, when we speak about green skills, I always wonder, we speak about specific skills, new technologies emerging, new sustainable technology, or we speak about people doing something they already do now, doing it differently. Abdel, so what's the difference there, and what do we mean?
That's, again, an excellent question. But like you said, what we did in our Green Comp, or the European Sustainability Framework, that's the full name, is really look not just at the skills that are needed in the job, because this is addressed really at lifelong learners. So it's from early childhood until you enter the job market, and then you advance in your position. But it's also looking at attitudes and values, because we think these are very important for citizens at large, not just for the job market. Because if we do not change the way we think about nature, our relationship with regards to nature, if we do not acquire the specific knowledge that allows us to deal with these new systems, again, navigating the political system, asking for the policymakers to be accountable for their actions, right? Taking the initiatives, all of these competences, you see, it's not just skills that you apply in the job, but it's really things that you apply in your daily life. These are key to raising awareness, to change the behavior, and to reach the objectives of the green transition. But like Serna was saying, already in the job market, if you look at job postings in LinkedIn, for instance, the number one keyword that is raising the most is sustainability. Employers are looking for sustainability, but then you do not necessarily find these jobs in what you would traditionally think as green jobs. This sustainability is needed in finance now, right? Because we have this new finance taxonomy. Sustainability is needed in monitoring, in industry. So these are jobs that you do not think about as green per se. The same goes for teaching. And this is, I think Serna can add a lot about that, but we do need the people to train the next generation in these green skills, and those need also to acquire these skills in order to be able to transfer them.
Thanks, Abdel. Now a bit provocative question to all of you. Is our education system ready for the change?
It's going there. I don't think it's fully ready at this point, and I'm taking over, Maria, this question coming from the university, but also working in this field for like 20 years from different aspects. As you said, we a number of professors or teachers who are coming from the different world, meaning before Green Deal, before Paris Agreement, they have to adapt as well with the knowledge, with certain skills, with certain capacities in order to merge all of this, resolving this complex issue. However, we have youngsters, we have youth who are already accommodating, who are already learning about the new environments, the new goals that have been set, and becoming aware that shifts needs to be changed personally on the individual level, but also in the solutions, in how we perceive things, how we live things. That's why we have different initiatives. And that's why I see that formal education, especially formal education, need a more boost in the future period in order to reach sustainable development education from different point.
Abdel, I saw you nodding. Do you want to add something to what Serna just said?
I couldn't agree more with Serna, actually. But like you said, if we want to take the provocative question to the limit, I think what we need to work on, is, especially in formal education, is really trying to attract those talents in the education industry, right? Because like I said, one of the major bottlenecks to equipping the citizens with the right skills for the green transition is really in the trainers, in training the trainers. We need to have the right people in order to equip the next generation with the right skills.
Thanks a lot. I think, Abdel, if you can check the audio, because you have some issues with the headsets again, but I think we understood your message about training of the trainers. Now, Roman, can you tell us if ETF is doing something about it, and what the ETF in general is planning to do in the terms of the green skills? Roman.
Yeah, with pleasure. So maybe to start off from the previous answer, so ETF is basically the European agency that's looking at helping countries of the European neighborhood, so North Africa, Middle East, and Eastern Europe, and we help them reform their education, training, and employment systems so that they can optimize their human capital. And so naturally, in the current context where we are, where the green transition really determines basically everything, we are tracking progress in our what we call them partner countries, and so we look at what they have enacted in terms of policy packages and what actions they have taken or what actions they plan to take. Now, we find that naturally it's very heterogeneous. Some countries are very advanced, others less so. But what ETF does to help that is to establish a kind of an index, a ranking of the progress that has been made in terms of how they've prepared for their green transitions in terms of skills. And so we use that to establish a baseline, which we can then use on a regular basis to monitor progress, the speed of progress. And that will be included into our Torino process. For the viewers today, who don't know what the Torino process is, it's one of the ETF flagship activity, which is to monitor skill development in all of our partner countries. So from next year, ETF will include greening of education and training as an integral part of what we monitor. And we hope that through this, we can help countries assess their own performance, benchmarking themselves to other countries in the region. So we do that, but another thing that we do just to finalize this is that we also launch and conduct dedicated skills needs assessments in certain sectors. And so, for example, we looked last year, we looked at the agri-food sector in Morocco. We looked at the energy sector in Albania. We looked at the automotive sector in Turkey. And most recently, the energy sector in Tunisia also. What we find is that as much as these countries are clearly aware of the changes that are upcoming when it comes to ensuring that the skills for these jobs are locally available. There is still lots to do.
Okay, yeah, and definitely today we will try to kind of find the path, to what can be done further. And thanks a lot to all our followers, because we see a lot of questions coming in the chat. And actually, from the questions I see, the followers are stretching us to another part of the focus. They're stretching us more to the employment and labor market. And actually, we have one question from Nicoletta Galimberti, and I would like Nicoletta to ask to specify what does she mean by SW, and we will tackle your question for sure. And then there is a question from Kazima Fahad. Please name which particular green jobs are currently in demand by companies and organizations in the EU. Serna.
Yeah, to respond to Hadad's question, according to the just most recent, latest green skills, green jobs outlook that have been posted on LinkedIn, the demand for the sustainability manager, for wind turbine expert, for ecologists are the one of the top jobs that are currently have been looking for by the employers at the market. So the jobs in the sustainable transport, so greening the transport, is also something that is very relevant, and it's very something that is popular and being asked for in the recent months and years.
Senna, but imagine we have a youngster in front of us, and we want to advise him on what teaching course or teaching pathway to pick, what profession that would be demanded for the green transition. What would that be? Transport, you mentioned?
Yes, sustainable transport. So energy efficiency, so solar and wind sector part of the energy sector. Then biodiversity, because we have the issue with losing biodiversity. So this is something that also is very demanding. Sustainable fashion, something also that is maybe appealing to youngsters, because the fashion industry, sustainability in the fashion industry is really fast growing in recent years. In last 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, the sustainability in the fashion industry grow for 90%. So there is an awareness of the need to change how we produce and spend goods, and on what we are spending. So these are the things that I would let's say put as a top priority.
Thanks, Anna. Super interesting. Abdel, do you want to follow up on that question?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that you mentioned, if you want to advise a youngster on what they should follow.
Abdel, I don't think we can hear you well. Maybe if you can try to change the audio, because your audio is a bit patchy. Mm-hmm. Let's try it again.
Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry for that. You said if you advise a child on what to follow in order to be part of interest.
Abdel, we still can't hear you, I'm afraid. We still can't hear you. You're really, really patchy. Maybe if you can, yeah, okay. Abdel will come back to us in a second.
Maybe, Maria, I can also add, not going to that young age now at this point, but also to advise people that the green transition also requires merging the soft skills into certain roles and specific expertise. That's why there is a high demand of problem solving, critical thinking in the position like a manager, the plant sustainability manager, or plant manager. So this is also something that young people should think on when we talk about green roles, green jobs, because it has to merge also different skills and competencies into specific role or a position.
Zana, would it be correct to say that soft skills play even higher role when it comes to the green competencies?
Yeah, very much. And indeed, it's something that global job outlook and something that is in demand is saying that these soft skills are becoming crucial for new jobs for this green transition that we are all facing, in different ways.
Thanks a lot, Sana. Let's go back to Abdel and see whether we can hear him.
Can you
Abdel.
hear me now?
Yes,
Is
it's
it better now?
I think.
Okay, perfect, good. Like I was saying, in the work we do, we identify STEM education as key for the green transition. Now, the good news is that if you take the renewable energy sector, for instance, most of the jobs created there will be technical jobs. So they do not require high levels of education, but still it's linked to the STEM education. In terms of list of jobs that are in high demand, to add to what Serna was saying, you can have the renovation, for instance, in the construction sector, where we need to work on the energy efficiency. But then if we look at the software industry as well, obviously most of you might have heard of this twin green and digital transition, where we try to identify synergies between these digital skills and green skills. And many of those occupations that have high degree of digital skills are very useful for the green transition. It has been used in the energy sector since the 70s, where it works on improving the energy efficiency, also improving the efficiency of renewables. So obviously, people with digital skills will be key for the green transition, and there is a high level of synergy there.
Yeah, just to spell out one thing that you mentioned about the STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. So those skills that are related to those areas. And in fact, I think we're tackling here a question from Nicoletta that was about IT professions, so software, digital. And she's saying, are they considered as possible players in this context? And I think Abdel just touched upon it, and he said that they are key players, in fact. Serna and then Roman. Serna.
Yes, yeah, I just wanted to add the smart strategies, smart specialization strategies that are being prepared by different countries have the IT as a cross-cutting, let's say, sector linked directly to, for example, agriculture or transport or energy. So this is why Abdel is saying people with digital skills are key, because it's a cross-cutting and something that is linked to every other aspect. I also wanted to mention, because Abdel was mentioning STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, we have to also mention that gender equality, because we are talking a lot about engineering sectors, and we know that it's, I will say, roughly traditionally men sectors, but there are initiatives, and Europe is doing a lot to foster gender equality. So, for example, Regional Cooperation Council has the initiatives for women in STEM. And, and especially, for example, in Southeast Europe at the universities, we have gender balance is relatively okay, but this gender balance is lacking on the traditional sectors like energy, machine engineering, mechanical engineering, sport even. So, but there are initiatives, there are things that are rolling and going in order to change this.
So do you mean that green transition can actually increase the gap between the gender?
I would prefer to say that maybe it will even balance it, not increase, because the role of women and also these soft skills that we were mentioning are also beneficial for the women, and the way of life and all other aspects of the women that they want to cherish during their life and career.
Roman, you wanted to add something, I think, about the...
Yeah. Let me complement what Serna and Abdel were explaining in their answer to Nicoletta. Clearly, as Abdel pointed out explicitly, it's a twin transition. It's both digital and green. We've seen with the COVID how we can accelerate our digital transition. For people working, and in fact, this applies to all the other questions, for people wondering whether their sector is going to be affected by this, well, think how much carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases is your sector emitting, and if it's a lot, yes, you will be affected. This is the case for IT, because as we all read, cloud computing is a major source of greenhouse gas emissions. This needs to be addressed. So software developers will need to work on that. And the other thing is that the integration of digital tools in most jobs is happening, and therefore, yes, for IT professionals, there will be lots of work, and there's already lots of work. One of the things that ETF did, and I just mentioned it briefly previously, but I'll mention it again, is we looked at the agri-food sector in Morocco and what's happening there. Climate change is clearly affecting farming and agricultural production in that region of the world, with much less water, higher temperatures. And what we find is that most of the professionals working in that sector now need to integrate digital tools to, for example, implement precision irrigation. They need digital tools to use drones, because you save on fossil fuels when you use drones to check on your fields. The entire spectrum of occupations are being both greened and more digital. So yes, is the answer to Nicoletta, clearly.
Thanks a lot, Roman. I wanted to quickly to come back to the gender issue and whether the green transition might actually end up in increasing the gender gap. Abdel, do you want to add something about that?
Absolutely, Maria, thank you. I think this also addresses one of the questions in the chat by Uruba Azhar, who says, how fast does the green transition need to happen? And now to answer that is, in order for the green transition to happen fast as we wish it to happen, we need women participation. That's the key issue. Like Serna said very rightly, there is an underrepresentation of women in those occupations that are key for the green transition, but also in education programs that are key for the green transition. And this is an issue that it's not like we should tackle it. We need to tackle it if we want to have enough people contributing in the employment side to the green transition. So it's no longer an option, it's a sine qua non for us to achieve the green transition.
Thanks a lot, Abdel. So in a way, it's two hands that should work together to achieve the same goal: the gender balance and the green economies. Now, actually, the question I will find it now about how fast the green transition needs to happen. I wanted to highlight it again. Roman, is there a deadline?
Yeah, there is. For those of us who've been reading on the subject, or even just the media, the most recent IPCC report. Sorry, I don't want to use a abbreviation. It's the Inter-Governmental Panel for Climate Change. It's basically a gathering of hundreds of climate scientists in the world reporting back on what's happening in terms of climate science. Their latest report establishes the fact that we must start to transit towards clean economies in the next 3 years, or we will lose the window of opportunity. And we will know when so it needs to happen very fast. This is extremely urgent, and it's a question of survival. However, when the end will be when we have controlled climate change, and this is likely to take decades to come.
And to complement, Maria, I can complement also Roman, and going back to European Green Deal, which has the goal of climate neutral continent by 2050. So we needed to act even prior, but we need to act as fast as we can. That's why we need this synergy from not only greening education, but greening production, greening industry, greening the way of how we live and spend resources, and also the well-being, our well-being needs and perceptive and how we live our lives needs to be changed. So this is all interconnected and linked to each other in order to reach all these goals.
But what is that unique in the European Green Deal? Is it the first time that that level of agreement is achieved?
Yes, and I can say confidently that the EU is a leader when it comes to sustainability globally, because of these policies that pushed forward and this framework, the biggest one existing, which will attract $1 trillion investments into this transition that is needed. From even financial point, you can see how important, how crucial is the change we needed because of our, as Roman said, survival.
Senna, what are the 10 most sustainable companies? Where do they come from?
They're coming. Most of them comes from the Europe, and the 10 most sustainable countries in the world are also coming from Europe. Okay, plus UK, of course. But I will now just briefly mention a few because I don't want to mention don't mention someone or some that are important. But for example, the first place goes. This is from January 2022. To Vestas wind system from Denmark. Then we have Hansen Holding from Denmark. Then we have Schneider Electric from France. Then we have Ørsted from Denmark. Then we have Dassault Systems from France. And so on to go. So Europe is a leader when it comes to sustainability in the living, but also in the industry. But we have to say that it's linked with the policies and the commitments that the EU is doing related to the green transition and this climate change issue that we are all facing.
Thanks a lot, Serna. Abdel, do you want to add something to that one?
Yes, just maybe on the Green Deal. If you want more details, the link is posted on the chat. But in terms of how unprecedented is the Green Deal, it's not just in terms of the financial investment that is being collected, like Serna was saying, but it's also in the level of ambition. This level of ambition in terms of reduction of emissions and sustainability is also unprecedented. And the great thing about the Green Deal is that it has this dimension of a fair and just transition where no one is left behind. And this is key because in the Green Deal does not, because there will be winners, but there will also be losers as a result of the green transition. And the Green Deal makes sure that all those people that will be affected negatively by this green transition will not be left alone. And even people in the outmost remote regions in Europe and in the neighborhood are also being part of the transition in order to ensure that everyone is part of it and no one is left behind.
Thanks.
And Maria, I can also compliment to Abdel. That's what coming back to the beginning of our live stream. That's when I was mentioning balance and shift. That certain sectors will have decrease, certain sector will expand due to this needed transition. And for example, there will be a loss of jobs because of technology integration, but there will be a creation of new jobs again because of technology integration, for example. So this kind, or there will be expand to contractors, subcontracting tasks to different specific activities, So there is this shift between sectors and jobs that we were mentioning from the beginning of due to the green transition from the beginning of this live.
So the education system, the education and training system would need to prepare not only the youngsters, but also to reskill and upskill the adult learners.
Yes. Reskilling and upskilling is something that I think all of us need to be focused more, especially now coming back to what Maria we said. There are a lot of people in each industry coming from, I will say, another era or another way of living and working in the industry, which need very fastly to change, to shift to a more sustainable way of thinking, teaching, working, and submerging different skills and knowledge. So maybe I will not say fortunately, reskilling and upskilling is still maybe more in the non-formal education sector. So that's why we have to think about it more in the formal education sector and how to go about it and to do it as soon as possible.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Now, coming back to the questions from the chat, there is a very good question from Izad Bek Berenaliyev. What do you think about how we can raise interest and attract the attention of the younger generation to green skills education choices? Roman.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I want to start by sharing some of the stats that we have collected at ETF, where we were because we're researching the entire spectrum of actions that are needed, and the awareness of the youth clearly is an important one. So we conducted some surveys last year, mostly in Eastern Europe, but a little bit in North Africa also. What we find is that young people want to do something about it, but they want to also learn more, and they're dissatisfied with how little they learn about the subject from school. So clearly, there is not only a need, but there's also a demand to increase the amount of sustainability subjects that are taught in the different levels of schooling. There's a need for that, and people want more. So clearly, this is very important. And what we also find is that as much as the, let's say, technical skills that a solar panel installer needs to learn can be very well taught through short vet courses. And that's great, because we need these occupations more now. But what matters also is to go back to what Abdel was explaining at the beginning, the idea of the green competence, the green mindset, where you understand the complexity of sustainability. You take in you appropriate the values of sustainability, and you believe in that a better future is possible. Not many people have that thought. This is, in fact, one of the most important green skills. Do you believe that you can be in a better situation in 10, 20 years? And then, of course, the notion and the understanding, the realization that at your level, you can do something about this, both in your personal and professional life. These skills will not only be taught through schooling, of course. These are things that you learn through your family, friends, watching TV, being on social media. So this is why the informal learning is just as important as the formal learning, and it needs to be addressed too from the side of policymakers.
Thanks a lot, Roman. Abdel, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, specifically on the awareness of the young generation, we have conducted a study with the OECD on the international assessment test. And the good news is that we found that all 15-year-old students have had an increased level of awareness, right? The not so good news is that this increased level of awareness does not necessarily translate into increased pro-environmental behavior. And this is where I joined back Romain. It's not enough. It is necessary. It is a necessary condition, but it's not enough. So we need to complement the awareness about the environmental issues with really public action, individual action, collective action, and this is where the civil society also plays a role. The family, surprisingly, we found that if parents adopt pro-environmental behavior, then the children will most likely also adopt pro-environmental behavior, but it also goes the other way around, where children bring environmental information, environmental knowledge from school and share it with their parent, and this is exactly where the link and the civil society can come together in order to achieve this goal outside of the school setting, which is very important in order to achieve this as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Abdel. Thanks a lot. This is super interesting and very important. Senna, from the point of view of the teacher that you are in the university, do you see the motivation of pupils to learn new green skills?
And I will also go back to what Roman Abdel says, link with what you're just asking. It should start, and it starts from the early age, and also with certain, especially in this era of ICTs, using different technologies to attract youngsters. For example, and coming also to this activities of the civil society or international organizations, for our audience and for everyone who is listening, Green Pack, for example, a multimedia package for education for sustainable development and environmental protection is something that can show youngsters and people the different, solving or contributing to resolving certain issues through mathematics or English is also is possible when it comes to environmental solutions or sustainable development. Can we attract them? Yes, but as Abdel saying, inclusion, I think, is a key. Inclusion of different actors, civil society, families, communities, policymakers, politicians, educational politicians need also to be done when it comes to green transition and what values, what we are reaching for or what we want to reach, and as well corporate social responsibilities. These are all things that we need to think about when it comes to green transitions.
Thanks a lot, Sarna. In fact, I think we had a question from Siria Taurelli about the importance of civic society organizations taking part in the green transition. But let's say from the involvement of all the partners, I would like to move to the topic of resistance, because we have a very interesting question from Branka Zizic about the development of green skills in the construction industry, for instance. And of course, we can't go ahead without it. So, Serna, do you want to?
Yeah, I will follow up. My dear colleague Branka, I greet her now. Yes, this is the problem with developing countries and developed countries. For green transition, the finance is needed, and developing countries are trying to develop, to boost their economies. And currently, as Branka said, in Montenegro and in other developing countries, especially South and East Europe, we have this gap and discrepancy between fully economic developing activities like construction, like hydropower plants, which are now very hot topic in the Southeast Europe. So there is currently we are not facing the balance, but new technologies can help construction sector be more green. So hopefully the greening of the construction sector will at least a bit minimize their negative effects of over constructing like we are facing in Montenegro.
Thanks a lot. Now, actually, Branka's question also made me think of one very, very, I think, big stereotype that the developing countries have, is that the green transition is pretty expensive. And this is kind of a process that can be tackled by countries with certain level of economies. So, Roman, maybe you can take that one. Is it a very expensive one, and it's only for very developed economies, the green transition?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. So in terms of numbers, I remember reading that McKinsey was claiming that it would cost about $33 trillion for the global economy to transit into a green economy. I don't know how that number was calculated, but yes, the magnitude is clearly astronomical. Now, I think if we should look at it the other way around, we should say, what is the cost of inaction? Climate change is affecting our economies already. Not only, in fact, it's even affecting the most vulnerable economies more than the ones that are more advanced. So from that perspective, the effects of climate change are perfectly unfair, and poor people suffer more. But when it comes to paying for the transition, well, this was a really hot topic at the COP26, where developing countries were complaining that the rich ones did not honor their commitment. And that's very true. Now, the fact is that the green transition, I mean, we were talking about the European Green Deal and how it's really one of the most ambitious ones in the world, which is true. I mean, one of the you were asking why it's so unique. One of the things that make it absolutely unique is that the commitments that were made in the European Green Deal have now been translated into climate law. Meaning that if the next government thinks, oh, well, the green transition is not that important, well, it's too late. It's in the law. It will happen now. So that's very positive. However, we all need to do it, the whole world. It cannot be something that Europe does alone, clearly. And I think all of us understand that. So as much as the EU can be a leader, it needs to do this in partnership with all its neighbors, the close ones and the distant ones. The European Green Deal, in terms of financing, also foresees that the green transition will basically now be the main objective of all aid packages. Aid has started, but will increasingly be linked to sustainability. So we hope that with this policy decision, we can make it easier for poorer countries to take the necessary steps for their green transition.
Thanks a lot, Roman. Serna, do you see amongst the policymakers deciding about education in Montenegro this feeling that we can't actually afford it? Do you see this, or it's not an issue in Montenegro?
Yes, I can see it, and To add different perspective also. For example, and I will tell you for Montenegro, we have an electrical system which is 50 years old. You want electrical cars. Okay, electrical cars can be produced, but we are a hilly country. And also the geography impact. So this is how complex is the issue. You are spending much more energy. Currently, energy comes from the fossil fuel. Electricity is produced from fossil fuel plants. So okay, you can have electric car, but it doesn't mean that you're fully green because you're using currently electricity, which is mostly produced from the fossil fuel sources. So that's why when I say it's costly, it also depends on the level of development of the country, how much it needs an investment. Sustainable transport. We need, for example, coming also from Montenegro, one example, there is a highway going from Slovenia, Croatia, then we don't have it in Montenegro, then there is a continuation in Albania. In order to have sustainability transport and to connect all these countries, you have to have highway, which is a costly thing to be constructed, So it's a complex, it's not so easy to answer, but we can all add on individual level also to contribute. So there are initiatives like producing less waste, not using the single-use plastics, So these are things that from individual point, institutional point, also can greatly contribute to this kind of activities related to green transition and reducing the influence of impacts of the climate change.
Thanks a lot, Serna. Abdel, do you want to follow up from the point of view of the European Commission?
Yes, maybe just on this point of the cost of the green transition, one thing that we should consider is it's always costlier to rebuild or re-engineer something that has been built on a wrong basis than to build already from the start using green standards. Like Serna was giving an example, it's very costly to change a whole electricity network just to make it greener. But if we are building that electricity network from scratch, it's better to start on good basis than wait 20 years and then go back there and then rebuild it. And this is very important because in the EU now there are many initiatives on for instance, energy efficiency of buildings. These are very costly, right? In the developing countries, we have this opportunity to start from scratch in some areas and to build on good basis. And this will always be cheaper than starting on wrong basis and then re-engineering those.
So Abdel, in a way, it's a leapfrog that actually developing countries can try and do and start building from scratch something that does not exist, but building it with green standards in mind.
Absolutely, because like Romain was saying, this is no longer an option. We will all face this climate urgency. So at one point or another, if it's not in the next 5 years, in the next 20 years, everyone on the planet will need to adapt to the climate change. So it's better to do it now. It's always cheaper to do it now than to do it in 20 years' time.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot, Abdel. And well, before wrapping up this session, there is a very important announcement that I would like to do to all our followers. The European Training Foundation this year launched a competition, the Green Skills Award 2022. And we've got more than 60 projects, initiatives from all over the world applying to this award. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock Central European Time, we will be announcing the 10 finalists of the Green Skills Award 2022. And actually, you are going to decide who's going to win. We will open the public vote, so please come and vote. And you will be deciding who will be the winner of the ETF Green Skills Award 2022. And at this point, I think we can wrap this conversation. I would like to thank all of our speakers. I think it was extremely interesting. And the main message is that we need to act now. The skills are important. We need to act on education and training to help people to tackle the challenges of the green transition. I would like to thank again our speakers, Serna Sudar from the University of Montenegro. Serna, thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to exchange these views and give some insights from our personal knowledge and experience of all of us to our audience.
It was a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks a lot, Serna. Abdel Bidat from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. Thanks a lot, Abdel. It was super interesting.
All the pleasure is mine. Thank you, Maya.
And last but not least, Roman Boitar, my colleague from the European Training Foundation. Thanks a lot, Roman.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure to share all this knowledge with you guys.
So thanks a lot and see you tomorrow, 11 o'clock in the morning, Central European Time. Please stay tuned because there is much more to come. Thank you and goodbye.